This is Truthful Manipulation, where truth is the truth and reality is made real and clear to understand. I'm Dave Kelsey, and I'm here today with my co-host, H. Daniel Mujahid. On this week's episode of Truthful Manipulation, we thought that we may have just a quick look back at the deception that went on at the end of 2025, and that's continuing in 2026, that is coming out of the U.S. government. We have people in power now that I don't believe are doing the will of the American people. The American people voted for someone that said that they were going to end wars, but more importantly, they were going to not get us into wars around the world that end up being frivolous. Over this last weekend, we saw the U.S. government do something that, first off, was illegal in the eyes of the world. We went in and took the leader of another country by force, and then we're saying, or we're demanding, that that sovereign nation bend a knee to our will. And I don't believe that the American people think that it's okay to go in and take somebody else's country because they disagree with how that government is being run. We've done this before. We've lived this several times already. We fell for this nonsense in Vietnam. We fell for it again in Iraq. Then we fell for it one more time in Afghanistan. And now he's going to put us into a long-term war that we will not be able to just walk away from, but it's something that we never needed to get into to start off with. In addition to going into one sovereign country, he's making threats to other sovereign nations. If you don't do what I want you to do, there are going to be major consequences. You have to understand when you see this stuff that these guys are virtually following what we referred to not too long ago as Satan's playbook in the way that they're going about things. Because first thing that on their playbook was they were going to attack the truth. They were going to eliminate the truth. Well, they lied to us about everything so far, except for Trump didn't lie about one thing over the weekend when he said, we're going to go in there and take their oil reserves. Just because you want something doesn't mean that you can go in and take it. Daniel lives kitty corner across the street from me back home. If he has something in his house that I want, it doesn't mean that I can just walk in there and take it because I might be bigger, stronger, and have more people on my side. That's not the way that we operate. And by doing that, we've now created a serious dilemma for the rest of the free world, because the rest of the free world used to look to the U.S. to stop this type of nonsense, not be the perpetrator of it. And Daniel, you've seen the perpetration of evil over the last little bit. But these guys are following the 2025 Devil's Playbook to a T. They're following it to the point where it's got 8 different things that are going to go on to wreck society. It said, if I were evil today, what would I do to wreck society? First thing I would do is I would ruin the truth. I would make it so no one understood what the truth is. The next thing I would do is I would turn disagreement into hatred. They're trying to make us hate the Venezuelans. We have nothing against the Venezuelans. They've done absolutely nothing to us. You can try to masquerade this as a drug enforcement action, but we all know that it's a manipulation of the truth. The truth is Venezuela has more oil than anyone else in the world, and we've got a greedy person that believes that because they can go, they should be able to go in, take whosever resources they choose in our hemisphere and make them theirs. Does that sound like the America that we all want to live in?
At the big, on this point you're making, I can't remember when it was. It was an article, early February sometime, by a gentleman named Tom Moore, and his argument shows that what many of the Americans who voted for Trump, including even the mega type, is that Trump has a war on America, not a war against crime, not a war against evil, not a war against corruption, a war against America. And I found that striking. And I remember in the article he was talking about that there are a lot of risks that are going to be involved, and without certain kinds of great leadership, they're going to turn into catastrophes. And I think now we're in the era where we're going to be seeing, I think more and more of us are going to realize that the way we perceived Donald Trump was not the way he was or he is, And then so now the question is going to become, how do we minimize or really eliminate his those schemes that he have that do not work for our interests, He does have schemes. They work for a few of us who happen to be billionaires. They work for a few of us who happen to be corrupt. They work for a few of us who have a goal to control the masses of society. But the majority of us are not in the position to really, I would say, to counter, because we don't come together as Americans. We let little small differences, which he highlights, we let those be the main thing, and they're not the main thing. So this is a dilemma, Dave.
Well, it's not really a dilemma. People know what the truth is. This is all about a distraction of the truth. It's a distraction of the truth on the Epstein files. The truth of the matter is all of those files were supposed to be released. The reason that all those files haven't been released is because we all know that those files contain the names of some very influential males that in their younger days made idiotic decisions that now they're all scrambling around to try to keep quiet. I thought it was funny they released some of that stuff. They released the women's names, but they didn't release the men's name. How is that?
Well, that's something that I think you'd have to ask somebody like a John Roberts or a Clarence Thomas, because
Well, that's
at
because they're
some point in time,
complicit too, though, Daniel. They're part
yeah.
of the problem. They told this guy that he had absolute immunity while he's in office. As
And
he's
right there, Dave, on that point, right there, stay right there, Dave, because I wanna dive on that right there. Great point. I ask America, I ask our listeners, and you can have other conversations with people who are not listening to our show yet, but I think it's important to consider that in the Constitution, the spirit of the Constitution itself is that when you say someone is given immunity, it does
no,
not
they
mean they
hold
are
on. They
given
didn't
immunity
say
against.
immunity. They said
It said absolute.
absolute immunity.
I stand corrected. If you say you're giving someone absolute, even with America, if you say you're giving someone absolute immunity, you cannot mean immunity from crime. And if these are criminal actions, and they are criminal actions, because every week we get another judge to stand up and saying what you did was illegal.
Hold on,
Executive
Daniel.
branch,
This isn't
yes.
just judges standing up. This is the Congress of the United States having a dereliction of their demanded constitutional job. It's the
Well, that's true. Yeah.
so
Yes.
when you have complacent and complicit people that aren't holding the other people accountable. That's why we originally had the three branches of government. They were to keep each other honest. We had this crap happen once before when Richard Nixon was president. He knew enough to resign. But this time you got a Supreme Court that said that this guy is immune from any type of prosecution. And they knew that he was going to break the law when they gave him that immunity. They knew what his background was. They knew what his track record was. And instead of trying to rain some of that evil law breaking on American activity back in, they decided it'd be a good idea to just sit back and watch him try to destroy everything that the rest of us have worked and stood our entire lives for.
Now that's a great point. Now we haven't established process wise our call-in number process yet. But any listeners, if you would contact us, email us your thoughts on this idea of, can someone be granted immunity or absolute immunity who tends to favor and forgive those that have been proven to be guilty. For example, Dave, is there anything that stops our current presider, I'll say, from at some point between now and November from just saying that he wants to forgive a group of people who've already been prosecuted as being criminal? He's done that in the past. Dave, is there anything that we can do about that?
At this moment in time, unless Congress decides that they've had enough, no. Between now and November, no. What you can do between now and November is remember where we're at right now and why we are in the situation that we're in. For those of you that thought that you were going to get something better, are you better off today?
Let's look at the food prices.
Do you feel safer today than you did? Do you feel more secure today than you did? Do you feel that you have expendable income to go out and do the things that you used to be able to do? The only thing that's come down in price is gasoline. But every single thing else has gone up in price. And it hasn't gone up in price by a little bit. It's gone up in price by way more than the increases that you got in pay or that you didn't get in pay. So you're still losing in the end. What you can do over this next year is get out and volunteer. Volunteer to find out if people are registered to vote. If they're not registered to vote, figure out how to get them out and be registered to vote, because the only way that we can get and take back our corrupt government is to put people in there that will stand up for the rights of the everyday American citizens, not just those that have a B at the end of their value.
Now, Dave, on that point, though, getting people registered to vote is one thing. Getting them to actually vote. We had 70 million Americans who were in that position. They still didn't vote. What do you think is missing, that the sense of urgency is not there for America?
I think the sense of urgency by November will be there, because they're going to feel it by things that are happening in society. You do understand, Daniel, that if we go to war, that's good for the economy. So he's looking for a way to improve the economy, but at what expense? At what expense did we just go through to maybe improve our economy? Did we just say to the rest of the world, if it's in your backyard and you can take it, I guess it's yours? Because that's the way that we're acting right now. And if you don't believe that that's the way that things should be, you need to talk to the people, get them registered to vote, and on election day, make sure that they find their way to the poll.
No, right there, though. What do you do to really get them to the polls is still a question. Now, I understand your point that the 70 million, they decided not to vote on purpose to send a message for this reason or that. But it tends to pan out that the masses tend to still take the path of apathy when you get down to the last minute and something has to be done, such as a vote.
Well, this time I think that people will remember, and I believe the reason that they'll remember is because it's affecting them now. People have a tendency to not react when things are out of their grasp and it really doesn't affect them. But when when you start taking child care benefits away from people just because you can, when you start doing things that hurt the lesser in society than you, those are all going to come back to bite you in the end. So my feeling is America has to learn a lesson, and we've learned a lesson. And as you said, there's a war on America right now, and there's a war within America, and the war is actually for the very soul of our democracy. It's pretty amazing that you go in and you take a world leader because he decided that he wasn't going to go by the will of the people and remained in power. Jesus, that sound familiar to you, Daniel? Sure sounds like 2020 to me. Sounds like exactly what happened. You want to know what the difference was?
What is that?
The other guy was better at it. That's the only difference. And that's why this dude is mad. He's mad because he lost, and he's mad because he wasn't able to pull off what this guy could pull off. So he's attempting to make this guy into some type of felon, whereas I would say the world would look at the U.S. today and go, you guys have a felon running everything, committing felonies on a daily basis as far as the world is concerned. And if the world is concerned with what we're doing, by God, the people should be concerned with what's going on.
Let me play Trump's advocate on that one, Dave. Is it also possible that by, let's say, sometime, I understand the trend that you're suggesting, but maybe sometime in maybe for the July 4th holiday, is it possible that the federal government can issue a nice $1,000 check to everybody and cause them to forget all that you have just said?
I think this time it's going to cost a lot more than $1,000 to have people forget what all has gone on. I do believe that America has had enough. I believe that by the time November rolls around, America will seriously have had enough. And my prediction is that by this time next year, there's going to be some serious consequences for those that have been involved in all the evil that's going on in the U.S. right now.
Well, I think that point is fine, but Dave, now keep in mind, when we get to that point, a great podcast friend of ours who fast, Joe Madison, used to say what we were going to do about something. Now, don't forget that Donald Trump can forgive in absentia. He can forgive ahead of time. The fact that the American people have not taken action, we don't want to wait to get to November to say what action did we take. We don't want to be recording, well, what did you do? We need to have that now. I'm not so convinced that the Americans willing to do what it takes to save the soul of America. Right now, I'm seeing a lot of sluggishness, Dave.
There are always people that are a little slow on the pickup, Daniel, but they've had almost 12 months of what's gone on. And I can almost guarantee you that the next 12 months are going to be more chaotic than what the last 12 months were. And keep this in mind. Our fearless leader doesn't really care about anyone but himself. So all those guys that are surrounding him that think that they can't be prosecuted later on, let's just say every dog has his day. And with that, that's this week's episode of Truthful Manipulation. We would like you to comment at the show or about the show today at truthfulmanipulation@gmail.com. Don't forget to pick up a copy of our book, Truthful Manipulation, available on Amazon. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe at truthfulmanipulation.com. Thank you very much for your time this week. We appreciate you and have a wonderful week. Thank you.